The turkey on the Ashford family table was golden brown, glazed with maple and bourbon, resting on a Wedgwood platter that had been in Patricia Ashford's family since 1887. The crystal wine glasses caught the candlelight like tiny fires. 12 place settings, 12 starched linen napkins folded into perfect swans. And at the far end of the table, 60-year-old Christina Whitfield was folding her napkin for the third time. Her hands, dark and weathered from 60 years of living, trembled just slightly as she smoothed the fabric across her lap. She had learned over the past 8 years that folding her napkin gave her something to do when no one was speaking to her. Across the table, her daughter-in-law Vanessa was laughing at something her mother, Patricia, had just said. Christina couldn't hear the joke, but she heard Vanessa's next words clearly. "Don't worry, Mother. Next year we'll do Christmas in Aspen. Just immediate family." Immediate family. Christina counted the people at the table. 12. She was the only grandmother present, the only one without a place card written in gold calligraphy, the only one whose name had not been mentioned, not once, in the 2 hours since the meal had begun. Her son Jerome, her only child, the boy she had raised alone after her husband Samuel passed 12 years ago, sat 3 seats away, cutting his turkey into smaller and smaller pieces. He had not looked at her since the salad course. Christina looked down at her hands, at the gold wedding band she still wore, 38 years after Samuel had placed it on her finger in a small Baptist church in Macon, Georgia. She thought about what Samuel had told their son the last Christmas before he died. Never let money make you forget who you are. She looked up at Jerome. He was laughing now at something his father-in-law had said, a hollow, performative laugh. Christina made a decision. She reached into her purse, the same leather purse she had carried for 15 years, and touched the envelope inside. The envelope from her attorney, Harold Davis. The envelope that contained a cashier's check for $15 million, the down payment on something she had been planning for months. Nobody at this table knew what was in that purse. Nobody at this table knew who Christina Whitfield really was. And by the end of this night, she would walk out of that door, past the Christmas tree covered in $10,000 worth of white and gold ornaments, and she would never again apologize for taking up space in the world. But first, her 8-year-old granddaughter Amara was going to ask her a question that no adult at the table had the courage to ask, and Christina's answer would change everything. 3 weeks earlier, in a small brick house on Adrian Drive in the Cascade Heights neighborhood of Atlanta, Christina Whitfield woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to start her sweet potato pies. She turned on the kitchen light and tied her hair back with a blue scarf her mother had given her in 1983. She pulled out the wooden mixing bowl she'd had since her wedding day, and the recipe card written in her mother Ruth's careful cursive handwriting. The card was stained with vanilla and brown sugar from 40 years of Christmas mornings. Ruth had been a domestic worker in Alabama in the 1950s, cooking in the kitchens of white families who called her girl even when she was 60 years old. Ruth had taught Christina how to make sweet potato pie the way her own grandmother had made it, with real butter, real vanilla, and a pinch of nutmeg that you could barely taste but always missed when it wasn't there. "Baby," Ruth used to say, "you put love in the food, and the food will love somebody back." Christina had been putting love in her food for 60 years. This morning she was making 4 pies, one for Jerome, because sweet potato pie had been his favorite since he was 3 years old. One for Amara, her granddaughter, who had learned last Christmas how to pinch the edges of the crust. One for little Tyler, who was 5 and too young to care about pie, but would eat it anyway. And one for the Ashford family, Patricia and Richard, Jerome's in-laws, who had never eaten a sweet potato pie in their lives, but who Christina hoped, stubbornly, might try hers. She preheated the oven to 350 degrees. She peeled the sweet potatoes she had roasted the night before. She cracked the eggs one by one, the way her mother had taught her, against the rim of the bowl. And while she worked, she thought about Samuel. Samuel Whitfield had been dead for 12 years, 3 months, and 11 days. Christina counted. She did not count because she was stuck in grief. She had made her peace with God about that. But because every day without Samuel was a day she had survived, and survival was worth counting. Samuel had been a quiet man, tall, thin, with hands that were always stained with pencil lead or engine grease, depending on what he was working on. He'd graduated from Tuskegee University in 1969, one of the first black aerospace engineers to be hired by Lockheed Martin. He'd worked for them for 37 years, mostly on navigation systems. By the time he retired in 2006, his name was on 7 patents. Christina had taught music at Booker T. Washington High School for 35 years. She had played piano at First Baptist Church every Sunday for 42 years. She and Samuel had raised one son, Jerome, in that little brick house on Adrian Drive, and they had been, by every measure that mattered to them, happy. What nobody knew, not Jerome, not their pastor, not even Christina's best friend Deborah, was that in 1998, Samuel had invested his patent royalties in a small aerospace spin-off company, a company that, by the time Samuel died in 2013, was worth millions. And by the time Christina was making sweet potato pies on this cold December morning in 2025, those original investments, plus the patent settlements that came through in 2017, plus 12 years of careful management by her attorney Harold Davis, had grown into something no one expected: $83 million. Christina had not told anyone, not even Jerome. She had promised Samuel, 3 days before he died, that she would not tell Jerome. "Let him build his own life, Chrissy," Samuel had whispered from the hospital bed. "Let him become the man he's going to become. Then decide." Christina had kept her promise for 12 years. She had watched Jerome graduate from Columbia Law School, where he thought he had gone on scholarships and student loans. He had. The scholarships were from a foundation Christina had quietly funded. She had watched him make partner at Kirkland & Ellis in Manhattan. She had watched him marry Vanessa Ashford in a $100,000 wedding that Christina had not been invited to help plan. And she had watched him become someone Samuel would not recognize. Christina slid the pies into the oven and set the timer for 50 minutes. She made herself a cup of coffee, black with 1 sugar, and sat down at the kitchen table. She remembered the last Christmas Samuel was alive. 2012. Jerome was 26, just out of law school, living in a studio apartment in Harlem. He had come home for Christmas, and the 3 of them had sat in this same kitchen, eating sweet potato pie and laughing. That night, Samuel had played Silent Night on the old upright piano in the living room, the piano Christina had bought in 1986 with her first year's savings as a music teacher. Jerome had played along, and Christina had sung. After Jerome went to bed, Samuel had taken Christina's hands in his and said, "Chrissy, promise me something. Promise me you'll never beg anybody, not even our son, to love you. If they don't see you, you walk. You walk tall, baby." Christina had promised. She had almost forgotten that promise in the years since, but she was about to remember. The phone rang at 7:45 that morning. It was Jerome. "Hey, Ma. Hey, baby. How's my boy?" There was a pause. Christina knew that pause. It was the pause Jerome had used since he was 12 years old, when he was about to ask her for something he knew she wouldn't like. "Ma, listen. About Christmas." "Mm-hmm. Vanessa's parents really want to host this year, up in Connecticut. It's going to be kind of a big thing. There's going to be some of my partners from the firm, and Richard's friends. Some of them are, pretty high profile." "Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, Ma, you always work so hard at Christmas. Maybe this year you could just take it easy. Stay in Atlanta. Deborah's in town, right? You could have Christmas with her." Christina looked at the 4 sweet potato pies she had just pulled out of the oven. The kitchen smelled like her mother, like every Christmas of her life. "Jerome," she said quietly, "are you telling me not to come?" "No, Ma. Of course not. I'm just saying—" "Jerome." A long silence. "Ma, Vanessa's family is a certain kind of family. You know that. And they're not used to—" He stopped. "Not used to what, son?" "Nothing. Forget it. If you want to come, come." Christina closed her eyes. "I'll come, Jerome. I bought my ticket last week." "Okay, Ma." A pause. "Ma, listen. One more thing. Vanessa wanted me to mention the dress code. It's black tie on Christmas Eve. Very formal. If you don't have anything, she said she could send you something." "I have a dress, Jerome." "Okay. Great. Okay. Ma, I love you." "I love you too, baby." She hung up the phone. She stood there in her kitchen looking at the 4 pies. Then her phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Hi, Mom. Just to make sure everything's smooth for Christmas Eve. The theme is classic winter elegance. Silver and cream tones. Please no African prints or bright colors. My mother is a little traditional and we want the photos to look cohesive. Also, please don't bring food. We have it all catered by Jean-Pierre's. You can just relax. XOXO. Christina read the text 3 times. Then she walked into the living room. She sat down at the old upright piano. She played 3 chords of Silent Night and stopped. She picked up the phone and called Harold Davis. Harold, it's Christina. Miss Christina, what can I do for you? Harold, I want to move forward with the Palm Beach property, the $15 million one. I want to close by December 20th. Miss Christina, are you sure? That's a big step. I'm sure, Harold. What changed your mind? Christina looked into the piano, at the photograph of Samuel on top of it, in his cap and gown from Tuskegee. I made a promise to my husband 12 years ago, she said. It's time I kept it. Christina landed at Bradley International Airport in Connecticut at 4:17 p.m. on Christmas Eve. She was wearing a navy blue wool coat, a cream-colored sweater, black slacks, and sensible leather shoes. Her purse was the same leather purse she'd had for 15 years. Her suitcase was a medium-sized Samsonite, black, with a red ribbon tied to the handle so she could spot it on the baggage claim. Nobody was there to meet her. She stood by the baggage claim for 20 minutes, watching other families reunite. A young black woman in a military uniform was lifted off her feet by her mother. A white grandfather knelt down to catch his 2 running grandchildren. A Korean family all talked at once, passing bags between them. Christina checked her phone. A text from Vanessa. Hi, Mom. So sorry, we're swamped here getting ready. Can you just grab an Uber? The address is 47 Elmwood Lane, Greenwich. See you soon. Christina ordered the Uber, $127 for the ride from Bradley to Greenwich. She paid without blinking. The driver was a young man from Ghana named Kofi. He helped her with her suitcase and asked where she was from. Atlanta, she said. Oh, beautiful city. You visiting family? My son, Christina said, and my grandbabies. That's wonderful, ma'am. Family is everything. Yes, it is, Christina said. Yes, it is. She looked out the window as they drove through Greenwich. Stone walls, long gravel driveways, houses that looked like museums. Kofi pulled up to 47 Elmwood Lane. It was a Tudor mansion, 3 stories, stone and timber, a wrought iron gate with a guardhouse. Christina got out. Kofi handed her the suitcase. Have a Merry Christmas, ma'am. You too, son. You too. She walked to the guardhouse. A young white man in a uniform looked up from his clipboard. Can I help you, ma'am? I'm here for the Ashford family. He looked at her coat, at her suitcase. Are you catering staff? The service entrance is around the back. You can drive around. Christina smiled, a smile she had learned a long time ago, a smile that did not reach her eyes. No, sir. I'm Jerome Whitfield's mother. The guard's face turned red. Oh, I am so sorry, ma'am. Please come right this way. Let me call up to the house. Thank you, he called. She stood there, holding her suitcase in the cold. It took 4 minutes for someone to come open the door. It was not Jerome. It was a woman in a gray uniform with a name tag that said Maria. Senora Whitfield? Please come in. Let me take your bag. Thank you, Maria. I can carry it. No, please, Senora. Mrs. Ashford. She don't like guests carrying bags. Christina handed her the suitcase. Inside, the house was decorated like a spread in Architectural Digest. A 12-foot Christmas tree in the foyer, covered entirely in silver and white ornaments. A garland of eucalyptus and white roses along the banister of a curved staircase. Candles everywhere. The smell of pine and something expensive, perhaps myrrh. There was no music playing. Christina stood in the foyer, holding her coat, waiting. Vanessa appeared at the top of the stairs. She was wearing a floor-length champagne-colored gown. Her blonde hair, dyed from her natural brown, Christina had always suspected, was swept up into a complicated twist. She was wearing diamond earrings that must have cost $40,000. Mom, you made it! She came down the stairs carefully, holding up the hem of her dress. She hugged Christina, a hug that touched shoulders but not chests, a hug that lasted exactly 1.5 seconds. How was your flight? You must be exhausted. Maria's going to take you up to your room. I put you on the 3rd floor. It's so quiet up there. You'll love it. The cocktail hour starts at 6, so you have plenty of time to freshen up. The 3rd floor. Christina had looked at the floor plan of this house once, when Jerome had proudly sent her photos of his in-laws' modest country home 3 years ago. The 3rd floor was the servants' quarters. Vanessa, where's Jerome? Oh, he's down in the wine cellar with Dad. They're picking wines for dinner. He'll be up in a bit. And the children? They're with the nanny. They'll come down for the family photo at 7. The family photo. Christina nodded. All right, I'll go freshen up. Great. Oh, Mom. Vanessa's eyes flicked down to Christina's navy blue coat. I'm so sorry. I should have been clearer in my text. The Christmas Eve dinner is really formal. Did you bring something nicer than that? If not, I'm sure we can figure something out. Christina looked at her daughter-in-law. I brought something nicer, Vanessa. Don't worry. Oh, wonderful. I can't wait to see it. The third-floor guest room was small. A twin bed with a white coverlet. A narrow window looking out over the back garden. A small dresser. No television. No telephone. Maria set down the suitcase and smiled kindly. Senora, if you need anything, just press this button, okay? Thank you, Maria. What's your full name, honey? Maria Hernandez, Senora. Maria, do you have children? Yes, Senora, 2 boys, 12 and 15. Are you going to be with them tonight? Maria's eyes dropped. No, Senora. I work tonight. Tomorrow morning I go home. Christina reached into her purse. She pulled out $200 bills. Maria, when you get off work tonight, you take this and you buy your boys something nice. Understand? Maria shook her head. Oh, Senora, no, I can't. Maria, you can. Take it. Maria took the money. Her eyes were wet. Gracias, Senora. God bless you. God bless you too, honey. Maria left the room. Christina sat down on the edge of the twin bed. She looked at herself in the small mirror above the dresser. She was 60 years old. Her hair was silver at the temples. There were lines around her eyes that had come from smiling more than from crying. Her skin was the color of rich mahogany, the same color as her mother's and her mother's mother's. She opened her suitcase. Inside, carefully folded, was a dress she had bought 3 weeks ago at Saks Fifth Avenue in Buckhead. A dress that had cost $4,000, a deep burgundy silk gown with long sleeves and a modest neckline. Tasteful, elegant, unapologetic. She also pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a pair of pearl earrings Samuel had given her on their 20th anniversary. The pearls had come from Mikimoto in Japan. Samuel had saved for 2 years to buy them. Christina had only worn them twice. Tonight, she would wear them. She opened her purse and touched the envelope from Harold Davis. The envelope that contained the closing documents on the Palm Beach property. The property was already hers. The check had already cleared. $15 million, a drop in the bucket of her real net worth, but a beginning. She had one more surprise in her purse. A smaller envelope, handwritten. A letter from Samuel, dated December 18, 2013. 3 days before he died. Samuel had written her a letter that day, from the hospital. A letter she had not read in 12 years. She had promised herself she would read it tonight. She didn't know why, but she felt like tonight was the night. She dressed slowly. The burgundy gown fit her perfectly. The pearls at her ears caught the light. She looked at herself in the small mirror, and for the first time in 8 years, she did not second-guess what she saw. She looked like Christina Whitfield. Not Jerome's mother. Not Samuel's widow. Not the lady from Atlanta who taught music at a public school. Christina Whitfield. At 6:10 p.m., there was a small knock at her door. "Grandma?" Christina opened the door. Amara stood there in a white lace dress, her hair in 2 perfect puffs with white ribbons. The 8-year-old threw her arms around Christina's waist and held on. "Grandma, I missed you so much." Christina knelt down. She took her granddaughter's face in her hands. "I missed you too, baby girl. I missed you so much." "Grandma, did you bring the pie?" Christina laughed. A real laugh, the first one since she'd landed. "I brought the pie, sweet pea. I brought you a pie just for you. Mama said we can't eat your pie. She said dessert is already catered." "Yeah, that." Christina looked into her granddaughter's eyes. "Baby, you want some pie tonight?" Amara nodded. "Then you're going to have some pie tonight, I promise." Amara wrapped her arms around Christina's neck. "Grandma, don't leave, okay? Promise me you won't leave." Christina held her granddaughter tight. She did not make the promise, because she already knew. The dining room at 47 Elmwood Lane had been designed to impress. The table was 17 feet long, made of hand-carved mahogany that had been in the Ashford family since 1923. The chairs were upholstered in pale blue silk. The chandelier above the table held 48 candles, each one lit by hand by Maria and another staff member 40 minutes before the guests arrived. The china was antique Wedgwood in a pattern called white gold, which had been discontinued in 1967. There were 6 different crystal glasses at each place setting, and Christina could not remember what half of them were for. She had been seated at the far end of the table, not at the head. That was Richard Ashford's seat. Not to his right. That was Patricia's. Not near Jerome, who was seated between Vanessa and a man named Bradford Wellington III, who owned a private equity firm. Christina was seated at the foot of the table, between an elderly aunt named Cordelia Ashford, who was hard of hearing, and an empty chair. The empty chair, she had learned when she sat down, was for Amara. Amara and Tyler would come down for the family photo at 7, and Amara would sit next to Christina for the appetizer course, and then the nanny would take the children back upstairs. "It's just easier that way, Mom," Vanessa had said, patting Christina's shoulder as she walked past. "The kids get so fussy at long dinners." Across the table, on Patricia's left, sat a man Christina had not expected to meet. He had been introduced to her as Dr. James Patterson, a professor of aerospace engineering at NYTE. He was a white man in his mid-70s, with a gentle face and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He had shaken Christina's hand warmly and asked where she was from. When she said Atlanta, he had smiled and said, "Oh, I have a dear friend at Georgia Tech. Beautiful city." He was, she suspected, the only person at the table who had greeted her like a human being. The meal began with oysters, which Christina did not eat, and a cold cucumber soup that tasted of almost nothing. Patricia Ashford, at the head of the table, had begun the dinner with a toast. "To family," Patricia had said, raising her champagne flute, "old and new." Everyone had raised their glasses. Christina had raised hers, too. She had been raising her glass to the Ashford family's toasts for 8 years. Tonight would be the last time. The second course was a foie gras terrine with fig compote, served on small toast points. Christina did not eat foie gras. She had opinions about how it was made, but she sat quietly, nibbling at the toast and sipping her water, listening to the conversations swirling around her. Dr. Patterson from across the table leaned forward slightly and smiled at her. "Mrs. Whitfield, I wanted to ask, Jerome mentioned that your late husband was an engineer. What was his field?" Christina felt her chest warm. It had been so long since anyone had asked her about Samuel. "Samuel was an aerospace engineer," she said. "He worked at Lockheed Martin for 37 years. He was part of the navigation systems group." "Lockheed," Dr. Patterson said, his eyes brightening. "Which facility?" "Marietta, Georgia. He worked on several projects, but his main work was on—" "Oh, Mom!" Vanessa's voice cut across the table like a crystal bell, cheerful and bright. "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Dr. Patterson, you absolutely must tell everyone about your trip to Davos last month. The story about the Norwegian minister is just priceless." Dr. Patterson blinked. He looked at Christina, then at Vanessa. "Oh, well, perhaps later. Mrs. Whitfield was telling me about her husband." "Oh, I'm sure Mom doesn't want to bore everyone with old stories," Vanessa laughed, her eyes glittering. "Right, Mom? Please, Dr. Patterson, I've been dying to hear about Davos all night." Dr. Patterson hesitated. He looked at Christina with something that looked like apology. Christina nodded at him, just a small nod. "Go ahead. It's all right." Dr. Patterson began his Davos story. It was, in fact, an interesting story. Christina listened politely, but her hands, under the table, had curled into fists. Between the foie gras course and the salad course, Patricia Ashford tapped her crystal water glass with a silver knife. "Attention, everyone. I have an announcement." Conversation around the table stopped. Patricia smiled her practiced smile. "After dinner, at 9 o'clock precisely, we will be doing our family Christmas photograph. I have engaged Mr. Julian Beaumont, the photographer, all the way from Paris. He does the most exquisite family portraits. His work was featured in Town and Country last spring. This will be our first proper family portrait since Jerome and Vanessa's wedding, and I want it to be absolutely perfect." Murmurs of approval around the table. Now, Julien has requested that the photograph include immediate family only. He feels that for the composition to work, we need to limit the subjects, so it will be Richard and myself, Jerome and Vanessa, the children, and Vanessa's brother William with his wife and their twins. Patricia's eyes found Christina at the end of the table. "Christina, dear, I hope you understand. It's purely an artistic decision. You're welcome to watch from the library, of course. There will be lovely hors d'oeuvres served." The room held its breath for a moment. Christina felt every eye on her. She felt the hot pulse of humiliation rising up her throat. Immediate family. She looked at Jerome. Jerome was looking at his wine glass. He picked up his knife and began cutting his salad. He did not look up. Christina smiled. She had learned over 60 years how to smile when she wanted to weep. "Of course, Patricia. I understand completely." "Wonderful," Patricia beamed. "Maria, please serve the next course." The salads arrived. Christina ate her salad. Dr. James Patterson across the table did not touch his. Between the salad and the main course, Patricia's cousin Eleanor Kensington leaned toward Jerome with bright, curious eyes. Eleanor was perhaps 70 years old, with white hair and real warmth. Christina had noticed her earlier and thought she might be a kind person. She had spoken gently to Christina when they were introduced, and she had complimented Christina's pearl earrings without any condescension. "Jerome, dear," Eleanor said, "I simply must ask. Vanessa told me that you played the most stunning Chopin at the Harvard Club benefit last spring. I had no idea you were a pianist. Who did you study with?" Jerome smiled, that same hollow smile. "Oh, I'm just a hobbyist, Mrs. Kensington. I'm mostly self-taught. I picked it up in college and kept at it." Christina set her fork down on the edge of her plate. She had taught Jerome piano from the time he was 4 years old. Every Saturday morning, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., for 14 years. She had driven him to Spelman College's pre-college music program every Saturday afternoon for 6 years. She had paid for private lessons with Mrs. Eugenia Washington, a concert pianist who had studied at the Curtis Institute when Jerome was 12. Jerome had won the Georgia Junior Piano Competition in 2001. Christina had sat in the audience, her heart breaking with pride, self-taught. Eleanor Kensington was smiling. "Oh, how extraordinary. You must be quite talented. Do you still play for family?" "Sometimes, yes," Jerome said. "My wife and I have a Steinway at our place in Manhattan. I play on weekends." He still did not look at his mother. Christina picked up her fork. She ate a piece of lettuce. She thought, "Samuel, where are you?" At 7 o'clock precisely, Amara and Tyler came down the stairs with the nanny, a young woman from Ireland named Siobhan. Amara was still wearing her white lace dress, and her hair puffs were still perfect, but her eyes were tired. Tyler, 5 years old, was already cranky, rubbing his eyes. Amara ran to Christina's side of the table. "Grandma!" Christina pulled out the empty chair next to her. "Right here, baby. You sit right here next to Grandma." Amara climbed into the chair. She leaned against Christina's arm. "Grandma, I'm hungry. What can I eat?" Christina looked at the main course, which had just been served. Duck breast with a cherry reduction and fingerling potatoes. Amara wrinkled her nose. "I don't like that." "I know, baby. Let me see what Grandma can find." Christina caught Maria's eye across the room. Maria came over immediately. "Maria, honey, could you bring some plain bread and butter for the little one? And maybe some mashed potatoes if there are any in the kitchen?" "Of course, Senora. Right away." Maria disappeared. Amara looked up at Christina. "Grandma, can I have pie tonight?" Christina smiled. "Grandma's pies are at the back of the kitchen. Maria's going to save you a piece, okay? Just for you." "Promise?" "Promise." Across the table, Vanessa had noticed the exchange. Her eyes sharpened. "Amara, sweetheart, what are you and Grandma whispering about?" "Mommy, Grandma said I can have sweet potato pie." Vanessa's smile froze. "Sweetheart, we have dessert already. Jean-Pierre made a beautiful bûche de Noël. You're going to love it." "But Grandma made me a pie. She promised." "Amara," Vanessa's voice was sweet, but the edge of it was sharp enough to cut glass. "We don't need Grandma's pie tonight. Grandma's pie it's for other times." Amara looked confused. "Why? Grandma always makes pie at Christmas." "Not tonight, sweetheart. Now eat your food." Patricia Ashford, overhearing, gave a small laugh. "Oh, Vanessa, let the child have a slice of pie if she wants. Just don't have the photographer included in the pictures. Grandmother's cooking doesn't quite fit the Christmas Eve aesthetic we've planned." A soft ripple of laughter moved around the table. It was a small thing, a very small thing. The kind of comment that could be explained away as harmless. The kind of comment that Christina had absorbed, swallowed, digested 1,000 times over 8 years. But Amara heard it. Amara was 8 years old, and she heard it the way 8-year-olds hear things, with their whole body. She stood up on her chair. Every adult at the table turned. "Amara, honey, sit down," Vanessa said. But Amara did not sit down. Her small body was shaking. Her face, dark brown like her grandmother's, was wet with sudden tears. "Why is everyone being mean to Grandma?" The room went silent. "Amara, sit down, now." Vanessa's voice had lost its sweetness. "No, Mommy, you're being mean to Grandma. You're always being mean to Grandma. Grandma teaches me songs, and Grandma makes me pies, and Grandma bought me a blanket with an A on it, and you said I had to keep it in the closet. Grandma is family. Why can't she be in the photo?" "Amara Grace Whitfield, get down from that chair this instant." Amara was sobbing now. "I hate you, Mommy. I hate you. I want to go home with Grandma." Siobhan, the nanny, swept in from the doorway and scooped Amara up off the chair. Amara wailed into her neck. Tyler, frightened, began to cry too. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Ashford, Mrs. Whitfield," Siobhan whispered, her cheeks flushed. "I'll take them up. I'll take them right up." She carried both children out of the dining room. The door closed. The silence that followed was the loudest silence Christina had ever heard. She sat very still, her hands folded in her lap. Vanessa, humiliated, began to laugh a tight, brittle laugh. "Goodness, that child. She's been so overtired lately. We're considering a different school for next year. I'm so sorry, everyone. Please continue." But no one picked up their forks. Patricia Ashford set down her wine glass. She looked at Christina with the kind of practiced sympathy that wealthy women use when they want to put another woman in her place without appearing rude. "Christina, dear, please don't take that to heart. Children don't understand these things. They don't understand that adults sometimes make decisions that might seem unfair, but are actually for the best." Christina said nothing. Patricia leaned forward, her voice warming into performative kindness. "You know, Christina, I want you to know something. Richard and I, we have always been so impressed with what you've done. Raising Jerome on your own after you lost your husband. I can't even imagine. And to see him become the successful man he is today, it really is a testament to your sacrifices. Vanessa and I talk about it often." Christina still said nothing. Patricia went on, warming to her theme. "I know we come from very different worlds, and I know our family can seem a bit intimidating, perhaps. But you must understand, we only want what's best for the children. We want them to grow up with every possible advantage, every possible door open to them. And sometimes that means making decisions that might feel exclusionary, but are really just about giving them the right kind of upbringing, the right kind of environment." Dr. James Patterson across the table had put down his fork. He was staring at Patricia with an expression Christina could not quite read. "Not every family is lucky enough to have our resources," Patricia continued, her smile growing. "And Christina, you have done such a lovely job with what you had. Truly. Raising a lawyer out of a public school teacher's salary in Atlanta, it's a small miracle. We appreciate everything you've done. We do. But you must understand, dear." Patricia paused and looked Christina directly in the eye. "A woman like you simply does not understand our world. And that's all right. We're not asking you to. We're just asking you to trust us when we make decisions about the children's future. Can you do that for us, Christina? Can you trust us?" "A woman like you." The 3 words hung in the air like smoke. Christina did not move. She did not blink. At the other end of the table, Jerome Whitfield, her son, the boy she had rocked to sleep 1,000 nights, the boy she had fed from her own body, the boy for whom she had sold her wedding ring once in 1989 when the rent was due, slowly raised his wine glass to his lips. He took a sip. He set the glass down. He said nothing. Christina folded her napkin. She folded it carefully, into quarters, then into eighths. She set it on the table beside her plate. She looked up at Patricia Ashford. She smiled. "Patricia, thank you." Patricia blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, dear?" "I said thank you. In 8 years of being Jerome's mother and Vanessa's mother-in-law, no one has ever been as honest with me as you have been tonight. I've been wondering if I was imagining it. Tonight you have confirmed for me that I was not." Patricia's practiced smile wavered. "I'm not sure what you—" "Please." Christina held up one hand. It was a gentle hand, a soft, unhurried hand. But Patricia stopped talking. "Please, let me have a turn. I've been listening for 8 years. I'd like to speak now." Around the table, no one moved. Bradford Wellington III had gone very still. Aunt Cordelia had turned up her hearing aid. Dr. Patterson was watching Christina with something that looked very much like respect. Christina turned her head slowly and looked at her son. Jerome. Jerome's eyes finally met hers. His eyes were wet. Jerome, I want to ask you something. I want you to listen to the question, and I want you to answer me honestly. Can you do that? Jerome nodded. He could not speak. Jerome, do you remember the piano? Jerome's face crumpled, just slightly, just for a moment. The old upright in the living room on Adrian Drive. Do you remember it? Yes, Ma. Do you remember who bought that piano, Jerome? You did, Ma. That's right. I bought it in 1986 with my first year's savings as a music teacher at Booker T. Washington High School. It cost me $840. It was everything I had. Do you remember why I bought it, Jerome? Jerome's voice was barely a whisper. For me. That's right. For you. Because you were 4 years old and I heard you singing in your sleep and I told your father, Sam, this boy has music in him and he's going to have a piano. Christina's voice did not shake. It was steady and calm and warm, like a Baptist church organ in the moments before the congregation begins to sing. I taught you to play piano, Jerome. Every Saturday morning, from the time you were 4 years old until you were 18. I drove you to Spelman every Saturday afternoon for 6 years. I paid Mrs. Eugenia Washington $150 an hour, which was half my weekly take-home pay, for 6 years. When you won the Georgia Junior Piano Competition in 2001, I sat in the 3rd row. You found me. You waved. Ma. And tonight, when Mrs. Kensington asked you where you learned to play, you looked at her, and you said you were self-taught. Eleanor Kensington made a small sound like a gasp. Jerome, I am not angry, son. I want you to hear me. I am not angry. But I am going to tell you what your father told you, the last Christmas before he died. Do you remember what your father told you? Jerome was crying now, silent tears rolling down his handsome face. He said, son, don't ever let money make you forget who you are. Yes, Ma. Jerome, I've been waiting 12 years for you to remember who you are, and I am going to wait longer if I need to. But I am not going to wait at this table. She turned to Vanessa. Vanessa's mascara was running. She looked suddenly very young. Vanessa, I tried. For 8 years I tried. I learned how to use the proper fork. I stopped wearing the clothes my mother made for me. I took the photograph off my Christmas cards because you said your friends didn't understand it. I called you honey and sweetheart, and I told myself that if I could just be enough, if I could just be acceptable, you would love me. Vanessa whispered, Mom, please. I am not finished, child. I want you to hear me. I do not blame you. I have been thinking about this for a long time. You are not the reason this is happening. I am the reason. I am the reason because I allowed it. I made myself small so that you could feel big. And that was not fair to you, Vanessa. It was not fair to either of us. Because now you think that I am small. And I am not small. I have never been small. Christina turned, finally, to Patricia Ashford. Patricia's face had gone white. Patricia, you said tonight that a woman like me does not understand your world. I want to tell you something about my world, Patricia. My mother was born in 1932 in Selma, Alabama. She cooked in the kitchen of a white family who called her girl until she was 63 years old. She raised their children while her own children were raised by my grandmother. When she died in 1994, she left me one thing, a recipe card for sweet potato pie, stained with vanilla and brown sugar. That is my inheritance, Patricia. That piece of paper is more valuable to me than everything in this house. Andi. Patricia's hands were trembling. You told me tonight that you appreciate what I've done. You told me that raising a lawyer from a public school teacher's salary was a small miracle. Patricia, let me tell you something. It was not a miracle. It was work. It was 42 years of work, and 42 years of faith, and 42 years of a good man at my side. Samuel Whitfield was the most brilliant engineer I ever met. He held 7 patents. Dr. Patterson. Christina turned toward Dr. James Patterson. Dr. Patterson's eyes were bright. Dr. Patterson, you asked me tonight about my husband. I did not get to finish. My husband, Samuel Whitfield, was one of the first black aerospace engineers hired at Lockheed Martin. He graduated from Tuskegee University in 1969, summa cum laude. He worked for 37 years on navigation systems for defense aircraft. He held 7 patents, 3 of which are still in use today in military aircraft manufactured by Lockheed Martin. He was, Dr. Patterson, a great man, not in the way this family understands greatness. He did not have a yacht. He did not vacation in Aspen. But he was a great man. Dr. Patterson nodded slowly. He was smiling very gently. Mrs. Whitfield, he said, his voice soft. I knew your husband's work. I used his 1987 paper on inertial guidance in my own dissertation at MEIT. He was brilliant, truly. Christina's eyes filled, for just a moment. Thank you, Dr. Patterson. Thank you for that. She stood up. She pushed her chair back carefully. She picked up her clutch from the table. I am going to go now. Mom, wait. Jerome stood up. Ma, please. Jerome, sit down, son. He sat down. Christina turned to Patricia. Patricia, thank you for your hospitality tonight. The duck was excellent. Please give my regards to Jean-Pierre. She turned to walk out of the room. At the door, she stopped. She turned back. Jerome? Yes, Ma. I love you, son. I have loved you every day of your life. I am going to love you every day for the rest of my life. But I am not going to beg you. Not tonight. Not ever. She walked out. Christina walked up the curved staircase. She passed a housekeeper in the hallway, who flattened herself against the wall. Christina smiled at her. Merry Christmas, honey. Merry Christmas, ma'am. On the third floor, Christina packed her suitcase in 6 minutes. The burgundy gown went back into its garment bag. The pearl earrings stayed in her ears. She came back down the stairs with her coat draped over her arm and her suitcase rolling behind her. In the foyer, Maria was waiting. Her face was wet with tears. Senora, please let me call you a car. Please. I already have a car, honey. I ordered one before I came downstairs. Senora, Maria pressed her hands to her mouth. I heard what you said. In the dining room. Forgive me, I was bringing the bread. I heard. Oh, Maria. Senora, what you said, gracias. Gracias for saying it. Christina pulled Maria into a hug. A real hug. A long one. Maria, Merry Christmas. Kiss your boys for me. I will, Senora. God bless you. God bless you, honey. The Uber was a black Cadillac Escalade. Christina had ordered it the moment she had folded her napkin at the dinner table. Black car service. Not Uber X. Not Uber Comfort. Black car. Leather seats. A driver in a suit. He opened the door for her. Mrs. Whitfield? Yes. Manhattan, ma'am? The Ritz-Carlton? Yes, please. He closed the door gently. From the foyer window, Christina saw Dr. James Patterson step out of the front door. He jogged to the car. Christina rolled down her window. Mrs. Whitfield, please, may I have your contact information? I would very much like to speak with you about your husband's work. There is a project at MIT I think you would want to know about. Christina took her business card from her purse. It was a simple card. Ivory, hand-lettered. Just her name, her cell phone number, and a P.O. box in Atlanta. Dr. Patterson, please call me any time. My name is Christina. Thank you, Christina, and please, call me James. I will, James. He stepped back from the car. Mrs. Whitfield? Christina? I just want to say, what you said in there tonight, that was one of the finest things I have ever heard said at a dinner table. Your husband would have been proud. Christina's throat tightened. Thank you, James. I hope he was listening. The car pulled away from 47 Elmwood Lane. Christina looked out the window at the cold Connecticut night. She saw the stone walls, the gravel driveways, the houses that looked like museums. She thought of Samuel, and for the first time in 12 years, she did not feel alone. Christmas Eve, 11:47 p.m. The Ritz-Carlton at Central Park South had a presidential suite on the 39th floor, $8,400 a night. A view of the park, dusted with fresh snow, and the lights of Fifth Avenue stretched out below like a river of gold. Christina Whitfield walked into the suite at 11:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. She was still wearing the burgundy silk gown. She was still wearing the pearl earrings. She tipped the bellman $100, thanked him, and closed the door. Then she sat down on the edge of the king-size bed, and for the first time that night, she cried. She cried for 20 minutes. Not the dignified, gentle weeping of a woman keeping her composure. The deep, ragged, body-shaking kind of crying that had been waiting inside her for 8 years. She cried for the son who had looked past her at the dinner table. She cried for the grandbaby who had stood on her chair and screamed at her mother. She cried for Samuel, who was not there to hold her hand. And then, finally, she stopped crying. She stood up. She washed her face. She ordered a pot of hot water from room service. Just hot water, no tea. And when it arrived, she sat at the window with a cup of it in her hands, looking out at the snow. She picked up her phone. It had 43 missed calls. 32 of them were from Jerome. 9 of them were from Vanessa. 1 was from Patricia Ashford. There was also a voicemail from Deborah Johnson, her best friend of 40 years, and a text from Harold Davis that simply said, "Merry Christmas, Christina. The team is ready when you are." Christina did not call Jerome. She did not call Vanessa. She did not call Patricia. She called Harold Davis. He picked up on the second ring. "Merry Christmas, Miss Christina." "Merry Christmas, Harold. I need you to do something for me." "Whatever you need." "Harold, I want you to release the press statement tomorrow morning, all of it. The foundation, the donation to the HBCUS, the Palm Beach property. I want it out." Harold was quiet for a long moment. "Christina, are you sure? Once this is public, your anonymity is gone forever. You understand what that means." "I understand, Harold." "And Jerome?" "Jerome will read about it in the paper, like everyone else. Miss Christina, I have to ask you one thing, as your friend, not as your attorney." "Go ahead. Is this about hurting your son? Because if it is, we should wait." Christina looked out at the snow falling on Central Park. "Harold, this is not about hurting my son. This is about stopping lying to him. I have been lying to my own child for 12 years, Harold. I told myself I was protecting him. I was protecting myself. I was afraid that if he knew the truth, he would become the kind of man I saw at the dinner table tonight. And Harold, he became that man anyway." She paused. "Tomorrow my son is going to find out who his mother is, and who his father was, and I am going to give him a chance to decide what he wants to do with that information." Harold was silent. Then he said, "I'll release it at 8 a.m., Christina. Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. All 3 at once. Thank you, Harold." "Miss Christina, may I say one more thing?" "Yes." "Samuel would be very proud of you tonight." Christina closed her eyes. "Thank you, Harold. Merry Christmas." She hung up the phone. Then she opened her purse and took out the small envelope, the one she had been carrying for 12 years. The letter from Samuel. The envelope was yellow now, at the edges. Her name was written on the front in Samuel's slanted, careful handwriting. For Christina. Below that, in smaller letters, "When you are ready to stop." She had asked Samuel 3 days before he died what that meant. "When I am ready to stop what, Sam?" Samuel had smiled at her from the hospital bed. His voice had been weak but clear. "You'll know, baby. When you're ready to stop, you'll know." Christina sat down at the small writing desk by the window. She poured herself a second cup of hot water. She took a deep breath. She opened the envelope. The letter was written on yellow legal pad paper. Samuel's handwriting. 4 pages. "My Chrissy. If you are reading this, it means you have finally put me down. Good. It's about time, baby. I have been waiting for you to put me down. I know you. I have loved you for 41 years, and I know you better than you know yourself. I know that when I die, you will try to keep on being everyone's everything. You will try to be Jerome's mother and Ruth's daughter and First Baptist's piano player and Booker T's music teacher and the woman who remembers everybody's birthday. You will try to be all of that, and you will forget the one thing you are supposed to remember. You are Christina Whitfield. Not Jerome's mother first, not my widow first, not anybody's anything first. You are Christina Whitfield, and the world has been trying to make you small since the day you were born in Macon, Georgia, and you have never been small. Not for one day, not for 1 minute. Baby, I want to tell you something I never told you while I was alive, because I was too proud. The work I did at Lockheed, the patents, the guidance systems, all of it, I could not have done any of it without you. Every morning when I left that house on Adrian Drive, I left knowing that you had packed my lunch and kissed my face and told me I was going to do great things. Every night when I came home, you were there with a hot supper and a song on the piano. I built rockets, Chrissy. But you built the man who built the rockets. The money we have, the money I never told Jerome about, the money Harold is managing for you, that money is not mine, Chrissy. That money is yours. You earned it with every load of laundry and every school lunch and every song you sang when I was tired. It is yours. So here is what I want you to do, baby. I want you to spend it, all of it, on whatever you want. On a beach house, on trips, on shoes, on other people. I don't care. I want you to spend it with joy. And Chrissy, if our boy ever forgets who he is, if he ever looks down on the people who raised him, if he ever lets his wife or his in-laws or his fancy friends make him ashamed of the house on Adrian Drive, or the piano in the living room, or the mother who bought him that piano, baby, you walk away. You walk away with your head up, and you don't come back until he remembers. He will remember, Chrissy. He's my boy. He will remember. But you do not wait for him to remember. You live your life. You live your beautiful, golden, hard-won life, and you do not wait for a single soul. I loved you from the first Sunday I saw you playing piano at First Baptist in 1979. I will love you from wherever I am going. I will love you until the end of the world. Your husband. Sam. Christina folded the letter carefully and put it back in its envelope. She held it against her chest for a long time. Then she walked to the window and looked out at the snow. Sam, she whispered, I heard you, baby. I heard you. Outside, the snow kept falling. Jerome Whitfield was sitting alone in the study of 47 Elmwood Lane, still in the suit he had worn to dinner the night before. He had not slept. His eyes were red. His phone buzzed. It was a news alert. From Forbes. He almost ignored it. Then he saw the headline. The quiet philanthropist, Christina Whitfield, widow of Lockheed engineer Samuel Whitfield, donates $50 million to historically black colleges. Jerome's hand began to shake. He clicked the article. In a Christmas Eve surprise that is shaking the philanthropy world, Atlanta-based Christina Whitfield, 60, announced last night a $50 million donation to a consortium of 7 historically black colleges and universities to establish STEM scholarships in the name of her late husband, aerospace engineer Samuel Whitfield. Mrs. Whitfield, a retired music teacher from Atlanta, is the widow of Samuel Whitfield, who held 7 patents in aerospace navigation systems and was a longtime engineer at Lockheed Martin. The Whitfield fortune, estimated at more than $83 million, comes from Mr. Whitfield's patent royalties and long-term investments in an aerospace spin-off firm. Mrs. Whitfield, who has maintained her privacy for more than a decade, also announced the launch of the Samuel Whitfield Foundation for Black Engineering Students in partnership with MIT, Tuskegee University, and Spelman College. I waited 12 years to do this, Mrs. Whitfield told Forbes in a brief statement. I waited because my husband asked me to wait. I am done waiting. Mrs. Whitfield was photographed last night at a small charity gala in Manhattan alongside Oprah Winfrey, who is a longtime supporter of HBCU education, and former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. Jerome stared at the photograph. His mother, in a burgundy silk gown, pearl earrings, standing between Oprah Winfrey and Stacey Abrams, smiling, a real smile, the smile he had not seen on his mother's face in a very, very long time. The door to the study opened. Vanessa stood there. She was barefoot. Her mascara was smeared. She had not taken off last night's dress. Jerome, I saw it. Jerome, Jerome, $83 million. She has $83 million. Jerome put his phone down. He looked at his wife. Vanessa, she's not worth $83 million. My mother is worth $83 million. That's a different thing. Vanessa sat down on the leather sofa. She was trembling. Jerome, what are we going to do? Jerome laughed, a broken, terrible laugh. Vanessa, I don't know what we are going to do. I know what I am going to do. I am going to figure out how to be my mother's son again. Jerome, please. Vanessa, go upstairs. Get dressed. We are going to Atlanta today. Today? It's Christmas morning. The children are coming with us. All of us. We are going to Atlanta today, and we are going to find my mother, and I am going to apologize to her. In person. On my knees if I have to. Vanessa's face crumpled. Jerome, she won't see us. You saw her last night. She won't, then she won't. And we will come home, and we will try again next week, and the week after that. Jerome stood up. He crossed the room. He knelt down in front of his wife and took her hands. Vanessa, I am going to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. The full truth. Vanessa looked up at him with terrified eyes. What? Do you love my mother? Vanessa opened her mouth. She closed it. She opened it again, and then she began to sob. Jerome, I don't know how to answer that. I don't know how to answer that because I don't even know if I love myself. Jerome, I have something to tell you. Something I should have told you 8 years ago. Jerome waited. Vanessa wiped her face. Jerome, I'm not really in Ashford. 5 days later, December 30th, a Tuesday morning, Christina was sitting on the back porch of her little brick house on Adrian Drive in Atlanta. It was 48 degrees outside, which was cold for Atlanta, but warm for December, and she was wrapped in a wool blanket, drinking coffee, watching a cardinal on her bird feeder. Deborah Johnson was sitting next to her. Deborah had driven in from Myrtle Beach the day after Christmas and had not left. You're not going to leave until January, are you, Deb? Nope. I'm here until I'm sure you're not going to do something crazy like buy another mansion. I might buy another mansion. Christina, Palm Beach and a townhouse in Manhattan is already too much. I am your oldest friend. I have the authority to say this. Christina laughed. A real laugh. She had been laughing a lot the last 5 days. Jerome and Vanessa had come to Atlanta on Christmas Day. They had knocked on the door. Christina had not answered. She had watched them from the upstairs window. They had sat on the front porch for 2 hours. Then they had left. They had come back on December 26th. Christina had opened the door. She had told them, kindly, that she was not ready. She had told them she loved them. She had told them she needed time. Jerome had nodded. He had said, "Take all the time you need, Ma." He had not argued. He had not pushed. He had just said those words and left. That had given Christina the first real hope she had felt in 8 years. "Mail's here," Deborah said as the mail truck pulled away from the curb. Christina went out to the mailbox. She came back with a stack of cards, and on top, a heavy cream-colored envelope. Hand-addressed. No return address. Atlanta postmark. She recognized the handwriting. Vanessa. Christina sat down on the porch. She opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. 6 pages, written by hand. Dear Mom, Christina, I am not writing this letter to ask for your forgiveness. I do not deserve your forgiveness, and I am not going to insult you by begging for it. I am writing this letter because there is something about me that you do not know, something that nobody knows except Jerome, and he has only known for 5 days. I am writing this letter because I think it is time you knew too. My name is not Vanessa Ashford. My real name is Vanessa Mae Simmons. I was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1990. My mother, Rose Simmons, was 17 years old when she had me. My biological father was a man she met at a party whose name she did not know. My mother died of a heroin overdose when I was 9 years old. I was placed in foster care. I was in foster care for 3 years. I had 4 different placements. 2 of them were bad. 1 of them was very bad. I will not write the details here. They do not matter anymore. When I was 12 years old, a couple named Richard and Patricia Ashford, who had spent 16 years trying to have their own child, decided to adopt a troubled older girl from the foster system. They came to my group home in Newark. Patricia wore a fur coat. I remember it was white. She looked at me like I was a puppy at the shelter. They took me home. They cleaned me up. They gave me a new name. Vanessa. They told me that May was not a name for an Ashford, and they dropped it from my papers. I never used it again. Mom, Christina, I need you to understand what it was like to be a 12-year-old black girl living in a white family that could not love me. Patricia tried. I think she tried. But she could not get past the fact that I was not hers. She could not get past the fact that my hair was different, and my skin was different, and my laugh was too loud, and I did not know which fork to use. She spent 8 years trying to fix me. Speech lessons, deportment lessons, a private tutor who came to teach me how to hold a teacup properly. By the time I was 20, I was the perfect Ashford, and I was also completely hollow. When I met Jerome in law school, I did something terrible. I lied to him. I told him I was a natural Ashford. I told him that Patricia and Richard were my biological parents. I told him my real mother was dead, which was technically true, but not the whole truth. Jerome never suspected. Nobody ever suspected. I had been playing the role of an Ashford for so long that I believed it myself. And then I met you, Mom, Christina. The first time I met you, you hugged me. You hugged me like you had known me for years. You called me baby. You told me I was beautiful. You told me that Jerome was lucky. You cooked for me. You showed me your piano. You sang for me. I hated you. I hated you because you were everything Patricia was not. You were warm. You were real. You were a black mother who loved her son so openly and so deeply that it hurt to watch. And I had spent my entire adult life pretending that I did not need that kind of love, pretending that I did not miss my own mother. pretending that I was happy to be in Ashford. When you hugged me, you almost broke the lie I had been living. I could not allow that. I could not let you be real, because if you were real, then I was a fraud. So I made you small. I copied everything Patricia had ever done to me, and I did it to you. Mom, Christina, I have hated myself for 8 years. I cry every time I see you. I cried in the guest bathroom at your house the first Christmas we visited, because you made me a sweet potato pie with my name on it, and I could not remember the last time anyone had made me food with love. At the dinner table on Christmas Eve, when Patricia said, "A woman like you," I wanted to stand up and scream. I wanted to scream that Patricia was talking about me. I wanted to scream that I was not in Ashford. I wanted to scream that you were the mother I had been waiting my whole life for, and I had spent 8 years pushing you away because I could not believe I deserved you. I did not scream. I sat there, and I watched you walk out. Jerome knows now, I told him on Christmas morning. He has not left me, yet. I do not know if he will. I would not blame him if he did. I am not writing this letter to ask for your forgiveness. I know I do not deserve it. I am writing this letter because you deserve the truth. You deserved the truth 8 years ago, and you have not gotten it. I am in therapy now. I started on Monday. It is the first time in my life I have ever talked to anyone about my mother, Rose, about the foster homes, about Patricia. I am 35 years old, and I am finally becoming a person instead of a performance. If you never want to see me again, I will understand. I will raise your grandchildren to know who you are. I will tell them about your mother Ruth and her sweet potato pies. I will tell them that their grandma Christina is the bravest woman I have ever known. And if someday you are willing to sit across from me at a table, just the two of us, without Jerome, without the children, I would like that more than anything in this world. You do not have to forgive me. I just want to sit across from you and tell you face to face how sorry I am. Whatever you decide, I will respect. With love, and with shame, and with hope. Vanessa Mae Simmons. Christina read the letter 3 times. Then she handed it silently to Deborah. Deborah read it. When she finished, she put the letter down and she said, "Oh, Christina." "Yes, Deb." "Oh, baby. That poor girl." Christina nodded. She was crying, but she was also smiling. "Deb, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to help me write a letter back." They met on a Tuesday in the middle of January. The place was a small coffee shop on Peters Street in the West End of Atlanta, a shop owned by a young black woman named Tamika, who served the best Earl Grey tea in the city and did not recognize famous people because she did not watch the news. Vanessa came alone. She was wearing a gray sweater and jeans. No makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked 25 years old. Christina was already there, at a small table by the window. Vanessa sat down. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Christina reached across the table and took Vanessa's hand. "Vanessa, baby, I have to tell you something before you say anything." Vanessa nodded. Her eyes were wet. "I have been waiting 8 years to hear you call me Mom, and mean it. I don't know if we will get there. That is a road we are going to have to walk together, if we walk it at all. But I want to tell you," Christina squeezed her hand, "your mother Rose loved you. I didn't know her. But I know because I am a mother. A woman does not give birth to a child unless some part of her loves that child. She was sick, Vanessa. She was sick in a way that takes a lot of women in this country. But she loved you." Vanessa was sobbing now, silently. "And I want to tell you one more thing. Your name is Vanessa Mae. Mae was your mother's gift to you. You do not have to carry the name Ashford if you do not want to, but you hold on to Mae, baby. That name is yours." Vanessa nodded. She could not speak. "Now," Christina let go of Vanessa's hand. She picked up her coffee. "Tell me about therapy. I want to hear everything." The Samuel Whitfield Foundation for Black Engineering Students held its inaugural ceremony at MYT on June 14, 2026. The ceremony was held in the Huntington Hall Auditorium. 500 guests. The MIT Chancellor, the President of Tuskegee University, the President of Spelman, Dr. James Patterson, who had become the Foundation's academic director, 20 inaugural scholarship recipients, Black students from across the country who would study engineering on full scholarships with living stipends, named in honor of Samuel Whitfield. Christina was the keynote speaker. She wore a royal blue suit, pearl earrings. Her hair was silver and natural and pulled back simply. She spoke for 22 minutes. She told the students about her mother, Ruth, who had cooked in white women's kitchens. She told them about Samuel, who had been told in 1965 that black men did not become aerospace engineers, and who had become one anyway. She told them about the piano on Adrian Drive. She told them about the sweet potato pies. She ended with Samuel's words, "Don't ever let money make you forget who you are." The auditorium rose to its feet. The applause lasted 4 full minutes. In the front row, her family sat together. Jerome, Vanessa, Amara, 9 years old now, in a navy blue dress. Tyler, 6, in a small suit. Deborah Johnson. Reverend Thomas Williams. Harold Davis. Eleanor Brooks from next door. And then, as the applause began to fade, Jerome Whitfield stood up. He walked to the stage. Christina looked at him, surprised. Jerome took the microphone from her gently. He turned to the audience. "My name is Jerome Samuel Whitfield. I am the son of Christina Whitfield and the late Samuel Whitfield. I am 40 years old. I am a partner at Kirkland & Ellis in Manhattan. I graduated from Columbia Law School in 2010. He paused. His voice was shaking. "I have spent the last 8 years of my life being ashamed of my mother. I was ashamed because my wife's family, my wife's adoptive family, as I recently learned, taught me to be ashamed of her. I was ashamed because my mother was a public school teacher from Atlanta, and they were not. I was ashamed because my mother's house was small, and their house was big. I was ashamed because my mother cooked sweet potato pies with a recipe from Alabama, and they served foie gras from Paris." The audience was absolutely silent. On Christmas Eve of last year, at a dinner in Connecticut, my mother stood up at a table where I had let her be disrespected for 8 years, and she said what she needed to say. She did not scream. She did not curse. She did not humiliate anyone. She spoke the truth with grace. And she walked out. Jerome's voice broke. "I let my mother walk out of a dinner table on Christmas Eve, and I did not go after her. That is the thing I will have to live with for the rest of my life." He looked at Christina. She was crying. So was he. "Ma, I am standing here tonight at MIT, a university that my father deserved to teach at, but was never offered a job at because of the color of his skin, to tell you that I remember who I am. I am Samuel Whitfield's son. I am Ruth's grandson. I am the boy you taught piano on Saturday mornings on Adrian Drive. I am the boy who won the Georgia Junior Piano Competition in 2001, because my mother paid Mrs. Eugenia Washington half her paycheck for 6 years. He put his hand over his heart. "I did not teach myself to play the piano. My mother taught me." He turned back to the audience. "My name is Jerome Samuel Whitfield, and I am the son of Christina Whitfield." The auditorium erupted. Christina walked to her son. He handed her the microphone, and he put his arms around her. He held her like he had not held her in 15 years. She held him back. In the front row, Amara was crying. Vanessa was crying. Even Tyler, who was 6, had his face in his hands. Christina whispered in her son's ear, so no one else could hear. "Your father heard you tonight, baby. Your father heard you." Christmas, 1 year later. The house on Adrian Drive in Atlanta was decorated for Christmas Eve. The tree was a 6-foot Fraser fir in the corner of the living room. It was decorated with ornaments Christina had collected since 1983. Hand-painted wooden angels, felt snowflakes, a small ceramic piano. There was a photograph of Samuel on top of the old upright, next to a small branch of holly. 13 people were at the table. Christina Whitfield, at the head. Jerome and Vanessa, together, his hand on her back. Amara, 9 years old, in a red velvet dress. Her hair was in 2 natural puffs, and she was wearing the quilt Christina had made her draped over her shoulders like a cape, because she had insisted. Tyler, 6, in a small suit, reading a Christmas book at the table because he had already decided he was bored. Deborah Johnson, telling a loud story about the sweet potato pie contest at her church. Reverend Thomas Williams, laughing at Deborah's story. Eleanor Brooks, 78 years old, from next door. She had come alone, and Christina had insisted she come every year from now until forever. Harold Davis, Christina's attorney, and his wife Gloria. Maria Hernandez, who had flown down from Connecticut with her 2 teenage boys, Carlos and Miguel, who were now Christina's godsons. Maria had left the Ashfords' employment in February. Christina had helped her open a small catering business in Stamford. And Dr. James Patterson, who had flown down from Boston because Christina had asked him to, and because he and Deborah had quietly become something more than friends over the last 6 months, though neither of them was admitting it yet. 13 people, a sweet potato pie cooling on the counter, Samuel's photograph watching from the piano. Christina stood up. She raised her glass. "I have a short toast." The table quieted. "Last year, on Christmas Eve, I was at a table where I did not belong. I thought for a long time that the problem was that the table was too big for me, that I was not worthy of such a table." She smiled. "I know now the problem was not the table. The problem was that the table was too small. It did not have room for all of the love I wanted to put on it." She gestured at her own table. "This table, this little wooden table in this little house on Adrian Drive, it has room for everyone I love. It has room for old friends and new friends. It has room for the mailman, if he wanted to come. It has room for the girl my son married, who is still becoming the woman she wants to be. It has room for my grandbabies. It has room for a man I barely knew a year ago, who is sitting across from my oldest friend, and they think nobody has noticed, but we have all noticed." James Patterson turned pink. Deborah kicked Christina under the table. Everyone laughed. "This table has room for everyone, because love is not a small thing. Love is the biggest thing there is." Christina raised her glass higher. "To my husband, Samuel, who told me 12 years ago that when I was ready to stop, I would know." She looked around the table. Her eyes rested on Jerome, then on Amara, then on Vanessa, who was crying quietly and smiling. "I am ready, and I am not stopping. I am starting. To family." 13 glasses rose. "To family." After dinner, Christina sat down at the piano. Jerome sat down next to her. Their shoulders touched. They began to play Silent Night. Christina played the left hand. Jerome played the right. Their fingers moved in the old pattern, the pattern they had played together for 14 years of Saturday mornings, the pattern he had not forgotten in all the years he had pretended he had. Amara climbed up on the piano bench next to her grandmother. She leaned her head on Christina's arm. Vanessa stood behind them, filming quietly on her phone. In the kitchen, Maria was cutting slices of sweet potato pie. Deborah was passing plates. Eleanor Brooks, 78 years old, had closed her eyes and was singing softly along. James Patterson was watching Deborah from the doorway, a small smile on his face. Tyler, 6, had fallen asleep on the couch. The old upright piano, bought with $840 in 1986, was playing Silent Night on Christmas Eve. And from a photograph on top of the piano, Samuel Whitfield was watching. And Samuel Whitfield was smiling. Christina Whitfield finished the song. She looked at the camera, the one Vanessa was holding. She was 61 years old. Her hair was silver at the temples. Her skin was the color of rich mahogany. Her eyes were tired but bright. She said, "I was silent for 60 years. I was silent when they told me I was not light enough to be beautiful. I was silent when they told me I was not rich enough to be respected. I was silent when my own son forgot who I was. But I learned something. On the Christmas Eve, I walked out of that house in Connecticut. The silence of a black woman is not her agreement. It is the moment before the storm arrives." Christina smiled. "Merry Christmas, y'all, and to all the grandmothers out there who have made themselves small for too long. It is never, ever too late to stand up. It is never too late to be Christina.